There is also, within the Common Market Protocol, the Trade Remedies Committee, which would have been established in 2014. But this has not happened. So we also agreed that we should, as quickly as possible, each country should ensure that that committee is established to help us resolve the NTBs. We address the cost of travel within the community. We still have the highest, the most expensive tickets in the region. Some of the tickets in East Africa are more expensive than a ticket to Europe, or a ticket to the Middle East. So we also agreed to address that one. There is also the issue of restrictions against one another's airlines, restrictions on routes, landing rights, etc., etc. So we agreed that we should also have an air transport market harmonized with fees and levies and taxes addressed, because some taxes are so high and some of them are unnecessary. Within the United Republic of Tanzania, it's very difficult to call. We have what we call the one area network, but they have not joined it. Consequently, if you are within Tanzania, you are charged for receiving, charged for calling. You really, actually, when we go there, we're almost off air. The cost is very, very high. And in one of the meetings, one of the businessmen said that it is cheaper to fly from Arusha to Bujumbura. The cost of flying from Arusha to Bujumbura is the same as the cost of the phone call. So we also urge the Tanzanians to ensure that they join the one area network so that we can be able to communicate. Residence and work permits are still varying. I think the only area which has made progress is on the student visas. I think now in most countries agree for students moving without having to pay for a student visa. But others, the work permits, resident permits are still a problem. So that is also a violation of the Common Market Protocol, which gives the right of residence and right of establishment to members of the partner states. There are also issues on medical facilities. It's when people are moving within the region, they cannot have access to medical insurance. So unless you are leaving that country, you cannot have medical insurance. So we agreed also to discuss that one and see that it's harmonized, so that if I'm working in Uganda, maybe I'm with NSSF, I should be able to move, and when I go to work in Kenya, my NSSF benefits should follow me, and they continue. There's no break in between. So those are some of the areas that we talked about. Then we found that although a decision was taken to establish a Ministries of East African Community, a number of countries had joined them with 3 or 4 other ministries, such that they are now overloaded and are not able to focus on the issue of the treaty. So we asked the government to review that, to ensure that the ministries are standalone, so that they are able to handle the work of the region. We also agreed that the media is an important partner in the integration process. So we needed to ensure that they're integrated into the programs of the community, so that they are constantly with us, talking to the population, informing them, educating, and advocating. So these resolutions were taken to the heads of state, and they also reviewed them, and also included a few other things. For instance, at the summit, we gave the heads of state a report on the integration of the DRC, and I'm happy to report that the DRC acted faster than we expected. We had given them up to September to ratify the instruments. But they did that very early. They deposited on the 11th of July. So now they are fully members of the community. They actually attended the summit, and the officials will start attending our meetings. We also discussed the Nairobi process, and the summit took a decision that President Uhuru Kenyatta should continue as a facilitator for the Congo process, and he was appointed under the Protocol on Peace and Security of the East African Community to continue that job even after he leaves office. And also it was agreed that a fund be set up to support his work of a facilitator. Of course, we also addressed the need for the deployment of the standby force. We reiterated the need to send in the standby force, and the process is now underway. The Republic of South Sudan, we also issued a new program because they have not joined the customs union, they have not joined the common market protocol. So we agreed on a new program for them to ensure that they are fully integrated. We also had as a special guest the president of the Federal Republic of Somalia. The Somalia applied more than 30 years ago to join the community, but somehow after the community broke up, the campaign lost steam, and some years back they had again made an application, but it wasn't moving. But recently, after the DRC joined, they picked up impetus again. So this time we had the president of Somalia coming as a special guest to appeal to the heads of state that Somalia is part of the East African community and they want to belong. So we are also instructed to send a verification committee to Somalia to evaluate their readiness and report back at the forthcoming summits. We also discussed the issue of Kiswahili and French. A roadmap has been developed within the community. It will involve capacity building programs, to involve infrastructure and equipment, to involve technical support for the staff and so on. So these are some of the things that we need to do, including documentation, translation into English, Kiswahili and French, and the use of all those languages at regional and national events, and also to include them both in our curriculum. So at the end, the heads of state issued a communique, but before they did so, they had also appointed 2 new judges of the East African Court of Justice. They appointed Mr. Justice Ngaruye from Burundi as a new judge of the East African Court of Justice. On Uganda's side, we appointed Justice, it was Gachuko as the new judge of the East African Court of Justice. On Uganda's side, we appointed Justice Cheborion Barishaki as the judge of the Appellate Division. We also appointed Justice Sauda Mujasiri of Tanzania as the Vice President of the East African Court of Justice, and Dr. Justice Nyawelo as the Deputy Principal Judge of the First Division starting July. We also thanked Justice Monica Mujeni, Justice Kirawire, Justice Ingie, who has completed their tenure. We also noted that Mr. Wavzivamo, Deputy Secretary General, will end his tour in September 2022, and we thanked him, and we'll be replacing him with another ESD. A number of bills were also assented to, and that concluded the summit. That's what I wanted to update you on. Yes. Yeah. You people. Now Uganda. Some of these words are they in Uganda really? Okay, submit here one day.
That is the third deputy, that is the second deputy prime minister, Right Honorable Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga, and also the Minister of East African Community Affairs, updating the nation on the matters to do with the East African community. And those are some of the update is actually coming in live from the office of the second deputy prime minister at Kingdom, Kampala. And we started with a preamble from our senior reporter, Pedison Mumbere, on what Rebecca Kadaga has to say. Well, we continue with our discussion here at this particular moment in time with Barija Andrew on the discussions of the week, the key topics of the week that have definitely been the talk of town in the business world. And we've been able to report, to analyze some of those particular top stories from Monday. Barija has been on ground. We've been having different stories regarding the same matters. And hey, it is Friday and we want to usher you into a weekend with more of at least an in-depth analysis of this particular situation. Now, Andrew, we were still summing up with fuel prices.
Exactly.
You know, you mentioned about Total and Shell, and I've got on to realize that there are stations already now, Total and Shell, having petrol at 6,700, but that also depends on the place or the residence. Now, areas like the Wampeo station of Total, areas like Kampala, busy areas, fuel is quite expensive. But as you go up country, 6,600 for petrol, diesel 6,500. But then it is actually it has actually become a very worrying situation for Ugandans, because people really don't know what's next. The president only said we can opt for electric cars.
And by the way, I talked to on Monday during that strike. I got in touch with the people, and we still talked about the electric cars. And actually, they were saying, "Oh, this is a long-term vision. This is something that we can achieve right now." So. Yeah, so that's the situation, how it was standing right there. Yes.
So when you look at Ford Porto Petrol, Total Ford Porto City, 6,820 averagely.
Exactly.
Diesel is 6,380. So when you close to Ginger, I believe Ginger, this is where we started from.
Yeah, Ginger.
Ginger.
The riots, yeah. So Ginger, you can see that 6,580, that's petrol. In Kampala, it's 520 actually. Petrol, then diesel. Okay, this is Shell, right?
Shell, Total. We also have Oil Libya, Starbucks. Then we have something from Soroti City, Regina Monde, Catholic. But you've got to realize as well that these prices change every other day.
Every day. Actually, I think this week it's the very first time where we have seen petrol actually stabilizing in the prices, because whenever I'm coming from home, I always check up and I'm like,
you want to see is there any change?
Yes, and I have this feeling that this week, for the very first time ever since the fuel prices started to rise, we've had a stable fuel. A stable fuel price, not, like unlike before, whereby after a day.
And the good thing is that the traffic is now catching up.
Exactly.
I think also that adds up to the fact that fuel is hasn't hiked so much this week. I should say. My producer here, our producer Pamela, was actually saying that people are really worried with the fact that what if the fuel prices hit 10,000? Where will the next zero go on the dashboard? Okay, I have this concept. Currently, if the liter of fuel is at 6,000, 500, 700 maybe, and probably the transport fares, actually majority of the taxes have not increased. True.
So, despite it reaching 7,000, I have this concept that they will still be able to handle. But when it comes towards 10,000, that's when we shall have an additional 1,500. So still, we are still not so bad.
Maybe if you opt for a Tesla or something, I don't know, because the president says it is either way the best opportunity for Ugandans is to opt for electric cars, and Uganda is producing those with the Kira EVs. We have the Kira plant that is being constructed in Jinja. So hopefully that will be a solution.
But still, look, I was actually hearing a border person saying that a battery, they charges for it charges 2,000, and depending on the kilometers you drive, you're going to charge every after kilometer.
That is with the electric cars.
With electric batteries. And according to his explanation, he's saying it's like the sun.
But we also don't have power stations, I believe.
I think
where we're going to charge.
To charge from like
charge our
the
cars
batteries.
from.
Actually, I've not really tried to find out the charging power stations that's for the
Because at
electricity.
least if the president would at least also give us more about that directive.
Yeah.
And he says, well, we shall be setting up these charging stations, please buy electric cars. But buying electric cars without charging, I think
It's a process. It's a process.
And well, also the other issue that we're going to be discussing about this morning is the issue to do with Ukraine and Russia. Now, Ukraine and Russia, I believe in February is when Russia finally invaded Ukraine after the Cold War politics were done. So they decided to invade matters to do with political affiliations that we don't want to dive into. But now this time on, we want to look at some of these particular figures in terms of Russia and Ukraine's exports. Now, as you can see on your screens, when you look at the Russia and Ukraine exports, now, for example, in regards to Ukraine's GDP, how they've actually been performing in, that is courtesy of 2021, before this Ukraine invasion. Now, when you look at October 2021, there was slight improvement for the Ukraine's GDP. It was actually increasing. And then also the figures increased tremendously November, December. January, it started dropping. Now, that clearly was when Russia was threatening
the
to
invasion.
invade. Yes. So February, it dropped. Now, in the last few months, it has dropped drastically. And this can only be attributed to that invasion of Russia.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's what explains the rising prices due to the reduction of the exports that Ukraine has been exporting before.
Yes.
Due to the
Wheat,
war.
and most especially
Wheat.
also the African countries and stuff
wheat.
like that.
Yeah.
So when we move on as well, we want to look at how about Russia, because today in the SM International Updates, we've got to realize that Russia's economy is performing better than expected.
The ruby is really so high.
Yes.
You know, interestingly, during when they put the embargo, the trade embargo on Russia, the president Vladimir Putin said, if you want to purchase my oil, convert your money into the rubles
Of the Russian currency.
Yeah.
And then surprisingly, he cut supply of gas to the European continent.
Exactly, yes.
And it's actually worrying for the Europeans because they're heading into winter. And during winter, the winter season is when they will demand for gas. And the Russian president decided to cut supplies. But surprisingly, their economy is really performing. According to International Monetary Fund, I think the IMF thought Russia would come in for loans and all those things. But surprisingly, they've been able to go onwards with this performance.
You know, I think it brings back to that factor that I said, that if you want to purchase that oil, you need to convert your currency into their currency, and definitely that increases the price of the demand, because Europe actually 70% of the gas that they use largely comes from Russia. So you can see that at whatever cost, imagine you're transacting a pound into a ruble. Do you know what that means?
I think now the Russian is actually playing it easier for himself. He's got the coin in his favor.
Exactly.
So that means the heads are on his side, the tails are on the European continent, because the European continent decided to wage or stage an economic war on the Russian people, because they believe if you wage an economic war and you win that, I believe you're going to weaken the country.
And actually,
but surprisingly, Russia is performing well.
Very well. And actually, some of the factors. Okay, Russia's success is really largely dependent on so many factors. You remember when Britain left during the Brexit, left Europe. As we speak currently, the euro, it's really down, shrinking. I think. Quite a lot of things are not really going on right. So you can see Britain exiting Europe also played as a factor to help Putin raise the oil prices, dictate what he wants for the oil prices. And, the pound was quite a powerhouse for the euro.
And when you look at that perspective, you still realize that Russia and the Russia-Ukraine invasion is something that we should look at clearly as we just need to look at it from as spectators, I should say.
Exactly.
The Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs was in the country and met with President Museveni earlier on in the week, and they discussed quite a number of things. And President Museveni, remember, as Uganda did not participate in that vote of the UN to put sanctions on Russia.
Definitely, and actually there were, some good assumptions. We expecting that probably Russia could export oil straight to Uganda.
Okay. Now, also, lastly, from our discussions this week, let's mention something about the hawkers and vendors.
Wow.
And I think you as well covered that report with the SMB on ground.
Yeah.
So we would want at least to know, if you would want to know, what next for the hawkers and vendors? The excitement is there because they believe this time round it's easier for them to get back to the city to work. But what I've got to realize is they're not going back to the streets.
Yeah. So, okay, the good news is, before even we get so far, there is a market that has been vacated for them, that is in Calabre. That's where they're going to be running their operations from. So that stands a good news, because in Kampala, because recently we tried to reach out to the taxi park authorities. That was the new taxi park, and these people say we are not willing to have these people back into the park to operate, and they give all these sorts of reasons. Insecurity, congestion, and I'm thinking, these guys are thieves, really? Anyway, but coming to this, businesses have really been affected when they departed. You remember, actually, when I was speaking to some of the people, the border guys, still they say they used to drive these people. Today, you go to town at 8:30, the place is dry. And these were the people that used to really that make the place so quite busy. So there has been quite a hindrance. So I don't know whether the Kalere decision could be the best choice, because you remember, even still, when they told them to leave the streets, they vacated places like Wandegea for them, Usafi Market, but still many say the market is not really sufficient as compared to when they used to operate in towns and in the taxi parks.
All right. And we've not had Barija Andrew on ground this time round. We've had Barija Andrew on set. It is Friday, the 29th of July, 2022. 2 days we will be welcoming the month of August. By Monday, press time, it will be 1st August 2022. It will be the second month of the financial year, should say. But of course, the country is still facing challenges with inflation and all that. And of course, we're rebranding again. Smart Means Business. Stick around next week, Monday. We're getting bigger and better, growing to a space that you will definitely be part of, a space that you will enjoy any other day. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko here.
Andrew Barije.
All right, and you can get me and Jerome Paul Sonko on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Coming up shortly after is Financial Markets with Anthony Sebale. Later on will be Fred Makubia with Yugi Tukole, Naomi Mutumba with Skill Up. Before Hassan Nduga sums it up with Jen Kolela during our daily programming. I'll be back in the night with more to do with business today on your daily report on business reports across the country. Stick around, Smart 24 TV. We're driving business. Have a blessed weekend. Good morning.